Focus is very important. If you have to get the right increase, you need to have the right focus. We are either me-centric or sometimes people-centric. The breakthrough is this. God intervenes. God enters into your battlefield when your focus shifts from self unto the glory of God. Maturity is to understand that nothing revolves around us. Everything revolves around God. When you truly release the ownership of everything from self unto God, the owner will enter into the story and fight his battle. That's when there will be a game-changing breakthrough. How you entered here doesn't matter, but how you're going to exit will matter. Your story is not over. If you made God your focus, and if you make the very fruit of the Spirit of God your achievement, let me tell you, these 3 F's will change the way you exit from the place where you have come. Genesis chapter 40, can you read verse 14 and 15? See, Joseph had a shift in his focus. See, focus is very important. See, generally our eyes will focus on ourselves, or our eyes will focus on the people around us or circumstance around us, or thirdly, our eyes can focus on God. Now, what kind of focus do we have? That's why if you have to click a right picture, the photography depends on the kind of focus that you have. And for that, lenses are sometimes costlier than the camera, because lenses are used for right focus. And in life, if you have to get the right increase, you need to have the right focus. Now let's come to this verse from Genesis chapter 40, verse 14 and 15. Now see, Joseph lost his focus when he was in prison, mostly self-centric focus or people-centric focus. You have these 2 problems in our life. Either we are self-centered or we are people-centered. We have these 2 faulty mechanisms operating always in our focus mechanism. Either we look unto ourselves or we look unto the people around us. But think on me. You see, me perspective. He's looking at baker and butler, that your fortunes will be restored, but think on me when it shall be well with thee, and shew kindness, I pray thee, unto me, unto me, unto me, and make mention of me unto Pharaoh, and bring me out of this house. For indeed I was stolen away out of the land of the Hebrews, and here also have I done nothing that they should put me into the dungeon. I repeated. He sought the help of people around him. It was all a me perspective, self perspective. And finally in verse 23 says that the butler forgot about him, and God made him to forget. And almost it was a 2 years of forgetfulness. Yet did not the chief butler remember Joseph, but forget him. This is a problem with our life. We are either me-centric or sometimes people-centric, but both of them will fail. Now, when did he get the breakthrough? Very important secret, very important revelation. When did Joseph get the breakthrough? When did God intervene into his life? When did God bring an increase in his life? When was the chain of barrenness break? What was the first instance? Genesis chapter 41, verse 16. That's the secret for breakthrough. And Joseph answered Pharaoh, saying, it is not in me. God shall give Pharaoh an answer of peace. I want all of us to quickly see Genesis 41:25. Joseph said unto Pharaoh, the dream of Pharaoh is one, God hath showed. Genesis 41:32. And for that the dream was doubled unto Pharaoh twice. It is because the thing is established by God. And God, 41, as he says this, 41:39. And Pharaoh said unto Joseph, for as much as God, because you said God, hath showed thee all this, there is none so wise and discreet as thou art. Now I understand. Always you're saying it is God, God, God. Now let me tell you, where can we find a man in whom the Spirit of God is? And that was a nailing point, and that was a breaking point. The next verse says, come on, Joseph, I want to order that you would become the most powerful prime minister. Even my family shall obey to you. And that was a secret of breakthrough. Dear brothers and sisters, the breakthrough is this. God intervenes. God enters into your battlefield when your focus shifts from self unto the glory of God. But we are living in an illusion. We feel so narcissistic about life that whole things are happening around us, only for us, everything against us or everything for us, we feel as if world is revolving around ourselves. Don't we feel that? We always feel that. World is revolving around us. Traffic is because of us. Rains are because of us. Everything is happening just because of us. And we feel that whole world is revolving around us. Let me tell you a truth. Maturity is to understand that nothing revolves around us. Everything revolves around God. Let me tell you this. God is a creator. We are not creators. Don't go into the illusion sometimes thinking that I am God. I created myself. This is my world, my family. Everything we feel that it is mine, right? Romans chapter 14 verse 7. This is what we need to understand. The very purpose of our life is not self-glory. It is the glory of God that matters. For none of us liveth to himself, and no man dieth to himself. Then we'll die for a wife, for husband, for whom? Verse 8. All of us together. For whether we live or we die, we live unto Lord, and we die unto the Lord. Whether we live thereof or die, we are the Lord's. We live for God, we die for God. Ultimately, we came from God and we'll go back to God. Job said, I came empty into this world and I'll go empty from this world. I brought into this world nothing and I'll take from this world nothing. This is truth of life. How sooner we understand this, that smarter we become, that wiser we become. But Satan does not want us to open this truth of the eyes of our truth. And Satan always pushes us into this self-centric attitude or self-glory, seeking glory unto self, not seeking glory of God. Isaiah chapter 43 verse 7 says that God created man for his glory. Let me tell you something very serious, that when you truly release the ownership of everything from self unto God, let me tell you, the owner will enter into the story and fight his battle. Did you understand? When you release the ownership from self unto God, the due owner will enter into the battlefield and prove his ownership. And that's when there will be a game-changing breakthrough, and that's when things will be turned in life. In fact, if you see, when he begat children, Manasseh and Ephraim, Joseph says, it is God who made me forget the toil. It is God who will make me fruitful. Again, God. Isaiah chapter 8 verse 18, he says, these are the children whom you have given me. Job 121, Job says that God has given and God has taken it away. Nothing belongs to us. Nothing belongs to us. Everything is given by God and will be taken by God. But how faster you understand this truth, that smarter you become in life. But glory be to God that Joseph understood this secret. He went into Egypt without anything. He never forgot that. And let me tell you the beauty of that. As he comes to the fag end, not only his focus, his foresight is on eternity. Genesis chapter 50 verse 24. What a beautiful farewell speech that he gives. I really love this line that he says in Genesis 50:24. And Joseph said unto his brethren, I die, and God will surely visit you and bring you out of this land unto the land which he swore to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Verse 25. But do this thing that my heart is. Joseph took an oath of children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and you shall carry up my bones from here to the promised land. His foresight, his faith sight is always on promised land. The riches of Egypt could not distract his vision from eternity. If you turn our Bibles to Hebrews chapter 11 verse 9 and 10, Abraham always had his sight on the better city, a strange country dwelling in, and faith he sojourned in the land of promise as in a strange country, dwelling in tabernacles with Isaac and Jacob, the heirs with him of his same promise. Verse 10 says, for he looked for a city which hath foundations, whose builder and maker is God. The foresight unto eternity. Dear brothers and sisters, let me close with this. When you truly have foresight in eternity, Isaiah chapter 61 verse 7, I love this line. For your shame, you shall have double. And for your confusion, you'll rejoice in their portion. Therefore, in their land, they shall possess the double. Everlasting joy shall be unto them. Double fold restoration. But there is a mystery out here. When Joseph said, I don't belong here. When Joseph said that my purpose is to glorify God, and his focus was on God's glory, and his foresight was on the promised land. Bible says like this. Joseph, who's lost his rights into the promised land technically. In fact, Joseph's name is not mentioned in the 12 tribes of Israel or regional allocations of the promised land, right? But glory be to God. He married a heathen. He lost double fold. He lost because he went into Egypt. He became an Egyptian. And he married a priest's daughter and Asnath. Therefore, he lost twice. But glory be to God, the place where he lost, God said that because his focus was on eternity, focus was on God's glory, I'm going to pay back double. How much was he paid back? He has two children. One was Ephraim and second was Manasseh. When everyone got only one share, Joseph got double share in promised land. Did not God pay him back twice? Cut the story short. He entered as a slave. He existed as the prime minister. He entered into Egypt as most ashamed person in the world, but he exited as the most glorious, honored, greatest man of Egypt. Also cut the story short. You know the life of Jacob. Jacob, having come to Egypt as a refugee, he was in famine. Entire Israel was in famine. They entered Egypt as the survivors of famine, but glory be to God. When Jacob was exiting from the land, I love this line. He said, don't bury me here. See, in Genesis chapter 49, can we turn our Bibles there? He says, this is what I want you to take as a last promise, that when I die, take me back to the land of Canaan, that is the promised land. Now, having said this, he breathed his last. And Joseph fell on him and was crying bitterly. Bible says it that he called the embalmers to do the formality of Pharaoh. And for embalming his body, they took 40 days. Genesis chapter 50 verse 2. They took 40 days to embalm, because Egyptians are renowned for embalming, and they do it only for pharaohs because they mummify the body and then they prepare the Egyptian pyramids, which are historically one of the wonders of the world. Now, in order to make such a preparation, they made the preparation invoke in standards of a pharaoh. And now the final journey begins. What a glorious exit it is. Genesis chapter 50. Now, embalmed as Pharaoh, going like a Pharaoh. Now, Genesis chapter 50 verse 8. And all the house of Joseph and his brethren. Verse 7, Joseph went up to bury his father, and with him went up all the servants of Pharaoh, the armies of Pharaoh, elders of his house, ministers of his house, elders of the land of Egypt, and all the house of Joseph, and his brethren, and his father's house. Only their little ones and their flocks and their herds they left in the land of Goshen. Verse 9, and there went up with him both chariots and horsemen, and it was a very great company. What a grand exit he had. What a grand exit. What a grand exit. He entered as a vagabond. He entered as a refugee. He entered as a survivor of famine, but he is exiting in the stature of Pharaoh. He is exiting with the chariots and convoy of great glory. And you see the kind of honor that people are crying there out there. They are crying as if they lost a savior. You see, the Bible says in that when they were crying in verse 11, in verse 10 and 11, in the threshing floor of Atad, that is beyond Jordan, that they cried 7 days mourning for him. And all the inhabitants of the land of Canaan saw that this was a most grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Therefore, then he called it as Abel Mizraim, because they said that this pain is unbearable for Egyptians. Can you imagine? It is not the death of Joseph. It is not the death of Pharaoh, but it is the death of Jacob, which pained them so much that his loss meant the loss for the entire prosperity of Egypt. And can you see the kind of exit that this man had? That's why, before I close, I want to tell these lines. Your story is not over. He came to Egypt as a famine survivor, but he exited as a grandeur of Pharaoh. He entered into the Egypt in the way as seeking for his food as a hungry man, but he went out as a man of abundance, a man of glory. Let me tell you this. How you entered here doesn't matter, but how you're going to exit will matter. How you came here into this city, how you came here into this place doesn't matter, but how you are going to go out of this place would be the symbol of God's increase. In fact, all Israelites entered into Egypt as survivors of famine, but when they're exiting after 430 years, they exited with the entire wealth of Egypt. See, how you enter doesn't matter. How you're exiting would matter. Your story is not over. If you make God your focus, if you make promised land your focus, and if you make the very fruit of the Spirit of God your achievement, let me tell you, these 3 F's will change the way you exit from the place where you have come. Today, are we so cribbing about our life that we say that this all belongs to me? This all belongs to me. Let me tell you, we leave everything here and go. Nothing we would carry with us. Nothing. Everything we have to leave here. Dust we have come from, and will go back to dust. And the spirit that has come from God will go back to God. So egocentric, so selfish, so narcissistic, we feel every world is revolving around us. Everything is revolving around. How long you live in that illusion? Come out of it. Let truth dawn us. It's time that we truly realize the maturity and this revelation to understand that this is the fact of life.